In 2024, Canada, the fourth largest oil producer on the planet, pumped over 5 million barrels a day, behind only the US, Saudi Arabia, and Russia among the top oil-producing countries in the world. But the question many Canadians have been asking in Parliament, on pipeline sites, and searching online for years is this: why can't Canada refine its own oil? The answer has 3 layers, and the third one will completely change how you think about this. Let's start with the first one, which is the geography. See, over 80% of Canada's oil, around 4.3 million barrels a day, comes from one place, Alberta, in Western Canada. The people who need that fuel are 3,500 kilometers away in Ontario, Quebec, and New Brunswick. The main pipeline connecting them, the Enbridge main line, routes through the United States and is already running near its capacity limits. It was built for a different era and a fraction of today's production. After 2013, when a runaway oil train derailed in the Quebec town of Lac-Mégantic and killed 47 people, public appetite for oil by rail effectively died. It also costs 3 times more per barrel than pipeline anyway. And to cap it off, Alberta's oil has no smooth path east. That's the first problem, but it's actually the least interesting one. Do you know any other country that can't refine its oil because of geographical reasons? Please let me know in the comments. The second one is the wrong kind of oil. Even if you built a perfect pipeline from Alberta to Eastern Canada tomorrow, the refineries there couldn't use the oil. Here's why. Alberta produces oil from oil sands. What comes out is bitumen, a thick, almost like softened asphalt, loaded with sulfur and heavy metals. To move it through a pipeline at all, it has to be diluted with chemicals or heated constantly. The refineries in Quebec and Atlantic Canada were built 40 to 60 years ago, specifically designed for light crude from the Middle East and the North Sea. That's what was available when they were constructed. Sending Alberta's heavy bitumen through them would overwork the equipment, destroy yields, and produce more industrial waste than usable fuel. To fix that, you'd need to install what's called a coking unit at each refinery, a massive processing system capable of handling heavy crude. The cost would be between $2 and $5 billion per refinery, with a payback period of 15 to 25 years. Eastern Canada has roughly 10 refineries. Now, do the math. You're looking at $20 to $50 billion in upgrades for infrastructure built to process oil that's disappearing from the market, with returns that won't come in until 2045 or 2050, by which point the world is moving away from combustion engines entirely. No private company does that math and says yes, and Canada learned this the hard way. In 2017, it opened the Sturgeon Refinery in Alberta, the country's first new major refinery since 1984, with the original cost estimate being $4 billion, but finally rising to $9.7 billion. It featured a capacity of 50,000 barrels a day out of over 4 million produced. The refinery only opened because the Alberta government covered most of the construction risk and promised $20 billion in subsidized bitumen over 30 years. Without government money, it was never commercially viable. That's what building refineries in Canada actually looks like. Now, the third reason is the part nobody talks about, and it gets genuinely counterintuitive, as the debate usually goes completely wrong. Most people assume that refining oil at home is always better, that turning raw resources into finished products is how a country gets richer. But Statistics Canada's own data tells a different story. Oil sands extraction generates 64 cents of economic value for every dollar of output. Petroleum refining generates only 24 cents. Canada creates more than twice the economic value per dollar by extracting its oil than by refining it. Refining is a high-cost, thin-margin business. The US has 132 refineries, most already fully paid off over decades. China has lower labor costs and looser environmental rules. Competing against either of those as a new entrant paying today's construction cost and environmental compliance is nearly impossible. But there's another dimension to this that's even more overlooked. Think about lentils for a second. Canada is the world's largest lentil exporter. Those lentils leave Canadian ports dried, unprocessed, and raw, and nobody in Ottawa demands they be turned into soup first. Why, you might ask? Well, because a barrel of crude oil, like a bag of lentils, can be sold to any buyer, anywhere, at any time. The moment you refine it into gasoline, it has a shelf life of 3 to 6 months before it degrades, and it can only be sold to markets that need exactly that fuel blend right now. Alberta's main blend, Western Canadian Select, almost always trades at a steep discount to global benchmarks. Between 2010 and 2016, Alberta estimated more than $6 billion in lost royalties from that discount alone. In 2018, the total cost to the national economy was estimated at roughly $19 billion for that single year. And ordinary Canadians feel it too. Because Alberta oil can't reach Eastern refineries, Eastern Canadians buy their gasoline from the United States. Their pump prices are set not by Canadian production cost, but by American refining margins, American transport cost, and the exchange rate. Canada's own oil flows south, gets refined, and comes back north as gasoline. It sounds absurd, but that's the reality. So what is Canada doing about the whole thing? The Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion, completed in 2024 at a cost of 34 billion Canadian dollars, was built to break this cycle. It routes Alberta oil west to the British Columbia coast, where tankers can reach Asian buyers who pay closer to market price. In its first year of operation, exports through BC terminals increased more than sixfold. About 48% went to destinations outside the US, China, South Korea, India, Singapore, and Canadian heavy crude sells at a noticeably higher price in Asia than it does in the US. Canada is losing less money than before, but even at full capacity, Trans Mountain moves 890,000 barrels a day. Canada exports 4 million barrels a day to the US. The dependency hasn't broken, it's just bent slightly. A second proposed pipeline, terminating near Prince Rupert, one of the closest North American ports to Asia, could add another million barrels a day of Pacific export capacity, if it gets built. So why can't Canada refine its own oil? Because its oil is in the wrong province. Its refineries are built for the wrong crude. The cost of fixing either of those things runs into tens of billions of dollars, with 25-year payback periods that outlast the fossil fuel era itself. And because the economics of global commodity markets have always pointed to the same answer: extract close to the resource, refine close to the consumer, Canada's oil was never truly raw when it left the country. By the time it reaches a port, roughly 39% of Alberta's production has already been upgraded through major industrial processing. It just wasn't finished. And in the energy economics of the 21st century, that distinction is worth a lot more than most people realize, and costs Canada a lot more than most politicians are willing to admit. Australia has almost the exact same problem, but the reasons are completely different. We look at that in the next video.